Hello and welcome. In my latest video where I showcased my Warrior Forge Hammer build going up against the Act 4 bosses, I had a couple requests asking for a leveling planner, and this is my attempt at providing one. I would very much like to add a disclaimer that I am not normally a build creator, so, follow this at your own risk. It went fine for me. I'm also putting down a more streamlined version, knowing what I ended up doing, just putting down all the right decisions from the get-go. But yeah, follow at your own risk. It went fine for me. I'm still enjoying it. So I'm sure you will too if you decide to follow along. First off is gearing. Now, during any stage of progression for this character, you will always be looking for a similar type of weapon. You will want a two-handed mace. Look for the highest base that you can get, and then look for high physical damage, and for your suffixes you want attack speed and level of all melee skills. Now, you're probably not going to find all of these exact mods together. If you're unsure of what is an upgrade, just equip it, check the tooltip, DPS on your gems. Usually that's fine, and that should work out. For the rest of your gear, it's very simple. I wrote it down here as well. Look for armor bases, look for as much life as you can, and look for as much resistances as you can. Later on, you'll start seeing things like armor applies to elemental damage. That's very nice to have as well, but your resistances are more important, and so is your life. Now, as for your gems while you're leveling, up until level 31, when you are able to get Forge Hammer, you will probably want to use boneshatter. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this, but then again, I don't really enjoy any of the options that early Warrior has to offer as far as leveling goes. This was okay for me. I didn't mind it too much. If you're unfamiliar, boneshatter works by hitting a mob that is primed to stun. They will have like a nice little glowy orb on their head, which means that you can boneshatter them, which will then explode into AoE. This does very decent damage against AoE, against packs. It also does very decent damage against bosses. Typically, for a single target, people will choose to use Perfect Strike. I did use this for a while. I think at some point I ended up dropping it because I just kind of CBA'd with it. But if you don't mind using it, you definitely should. It's good for single target. So your basic setup will be, for clearing, you go into a pack, you make sure you prime them to be stunned. A lot of people do this by using Rolling Slam, the first hit, then dodging out of it, and then using boneshatter. I personally hate Rolling Slam, so I either use Mace Strike, where you just hit a mob and then it's usually primed to stun pretty fast, or Earthquake. I actually use Earthquake a lot. The first hit of Earthquake into a pack would usually prime some mobs to be stunned, and then it can just boneshatter them. Once you have Leap Slam with Brink, which is important because otherwise Leap Slam will probably stun them too fast. That's very smooth for clear. For single target, you want to use Infernal Cry followed by Perfect Strike. Perfect Strike, you have to time it. There are tons of guides on boneshatter. This is a very basic, this is what you can do. These are the support gems that I used. The support gems are important to note. I use things like Fire Attunement instead of the generic physical damage ones, because I did spec into Burning Strikes, which gives you extra damage as fire. That doesn't work if you use the physical support gem where you deal no elemental damage. It's a bit of a waste. So I just use the extra as fire. Other than that, I path it like this. I chose to go instantly into these defensive nodes, but I was playing on hardcore. I do recommend you take these eventually, but if you're just on softcore, if you want more damage, you can path into all of these nodes instantly. The attack speed or skill speed here is pretty nice as well. I would go into these before going further, just because having some defense is pretty nice to have. After that, you go into these generic two-handed nodes. I like taking the strength here because strength equals life, and there's some extra defense here as well. And this is more or less all you'll need for the boneshatter setup. Then going into Forge Hammer, this is where it gets a bit more interesting. Now on Forge Hammer, you see I have rapid attacks here. You can choose to use AoE instead. I would take one of the two because you do want some damage as well. Just take what you prefer. Try them both out. Take what you prefer. If you don't mind the attack speed, take AoE because it's nice for clear. If you don't mind to clear, you can take the attack speed because that's also very nice. I personally use Volcanic Fissure a lot when I'm clearing, so I don't feel like I need the AoE as much. But that's whatever. For support champs, it's all just, basic, more damage stuff. The more skill effect duration only comes into play very later on once you get Ancestral Cry, but we'll get to that. First, when you hit level 31, you get your level 9 support gems. Your basic rotation is going to be, you drop a Volcanic Fissure. You can see the support gems I have on here are Fire Exposure, some damage, and Rage. So it's more of a semi-support thingy where you make enemies exposed to fire damage and you build some rage. Volcanic Fissure will drop these fissures on the ground. You put that under the mobs and then you just start throwing your hammer onto that. Your hammer will proc those fissures and the combination is pretty good damage. You can use Infernal Cry on single target to buff your damage a bit. Now, one important thing to look out for is that when you drop your Forge Hammer, if you use Infernal Cry before you pick it back up, you will proc the explosion and it will go on cooldown for a decent bit. I do this a lot. I still do this a lot. It happens. It's fine. It's just a bit annoying. But yeah, generally Infernal Cry and then use your abilities. These auras, in order of when you can get them, there's just damage, or well, clear, and defensive stuff. Once you get to the level 13, I think it is, gems, that's when things start getting more interesting. Infernal Cry, or not, sorry, Ancestral Cry, sorry, makes it so when you walk around, you get a nice extra ability called Volcanic Steps, which means that your steps become slams, and slams trigger the fissures from Volcanic Fissure and Forge Hammer. So what you are going to do on single target, don't do this for AoE, it's a waste, you don't need to. On single target, you will Infernal Cry, then you will Volcanic Fissure into Forge Hammer. Do not pick up the Forge Hammer, you are going to proc the explodey part from Forge Hammer with Ancestral Cry. And then you're just going to walk around. As you are walking around, you will proc all of these fissures, which will be generating rage. It will be applying fire exposure. And from the Forge Hammer, it will be doing a lot of damage. Usually, if you have a good weapon on single target, that's enough. I've added Hammer of the Gods because, while you're walking, you're not really doing anything. So might as well drop a big ol' hammer for some extra damage. I have a showcase of this later on in the video. You will see I just destroy a boss. It's early maps, but the single target damage is very good. As long as you have a weapon, I promise this will feel very good. The rotation is described here as well. I think I covered everything. Now, as for your passive tree, so the Ascendancy is interesting. I first went into Warbringer with the, Anvil's Weight, which is the break armor one. I figured that wasn't very useful as I went to fire, so I respec'd to Titan. I took the 2 slam nodes. That's very nice. I honestly recommend just instantly going Titan. Take these 2 nodes. And then later on, once you start getting to maps, you can go into Warbringer. And you will get block, you will get armor break. That's also when you're a bit higher level, you can take this node where fully broken armor also applies to fire damage, because I do respec fully into fire damage. So this means broken armor actually has an effect. It's very nice. Other than that, it's just rage, generic damage, and aftershock, converting fire damage, and having some extra flammability magnitude and damage. this is more or less what you'll be going into maps with. Attack speed here. From here on out, I'm also still trying to kind of figure it out. There is like AoE and damage over here. There is this Warcry stuff that I'll probably go into soon. I really want to go into regen because if you do look at the gameplay example later on, I kind of feel like I need regen, but I can also get them from gear. So yeah, I'm still figuring it out at this point. I will probably update this Mobalytics thingy once I'm, have figured it out a bit more once I'm higher level. But this should get you started. So yeah, I do think I covered more or less everything at that point. I hope it was enjoyable. As I said, I'm not usually someone who makes builds. I hope this is more or less clear and usable if you're interested in doing this build. Otherwise, it wouldn't surprise me if other people have made better builds than me. But, if you're here, I hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you try this out and if it's fun or not. I am interested to hear. At the end of this, I'll play some gameplay examples from a low tier map because that's kind of where I'm at in the game right now. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. It helps a lot with, YouTube algorithm and stuff like that. And I hope you enjoy the build. See you later. So what you see here is me doing an abyss. You'll see me dropping volcanic fissures and throwing Forge Hammer on top of it. Then at some point here, I will proc Ancestral Warcry after proccing the Forge Hammer. At that point, I am just walking around here, kind of killing everything in sight. Once you get to mobs that aren't in those fissures anymore, you just drop a new volcanic fissure. You can drop the hammer on top of it. You can start throwing your Forge Hammer again. Kind of just use your abilities as, it feels good in the moment. Now, one thing I don't think I mentioned in the video is that from our ascendancy, we get that Warcries explode corpses. In situations like this, and you're about to see it, go boom. It's super nice. It does tons of damage against single target mobs, stuff like that. Then we have the boss here. You'll see that I have nearly full glory already because I've been mapping. So we go into the single target rotation. Fissure, hammer, ancestral cry. Start walking, drop the big ol' hammer on top. And, at that point it's pretty much dead. You can drop some Forge Hammers and it is done. Hope you enjoy.